So this video will sort of be a continuation, a part 2 of an offhand news video I made sometime in the past. In case you haven't seen it, I will have a card to it right up there in the corner of your screen, but essentially Disney announced a brand new theme park / resort in Abu Dhabi. And while the concept art really looks cool, and I talked about, different rides and theorized what could be part of this resort if it's ever built, in the previous video I did briefly mention the issues that might pop up when it comes to construction and workers' rights in Dubai, and more specifically in the case of this new Disney resort, Abu Dhabi. The Matterhorn at Disneyland was built during a time of very low regulations, and while Abu Dhabi doesn't have the best regulations in the world for the people who are building these things, at least, and that's a whole other topic we should talk about, not having the best regulations in the world was definitely an understatement. I probably should have phrased that better. I apologize. But I did want to dive a bit deeper into those issues and how it could potentially lead to the cancellation of this Abu Dhabi Disney resort, because I think it's worth talking about. I think we probably should talk about it just to shine a light on these things and let Disney know that we do know that these things happen, and if Disney allows these things to happen during the construction of their 7th resort, they're on the hook for that also. These things, I'm being really vague, but let's talk about this. Now, this isn't going to be the most fun video I've ever made. I'm not going to go out of my way to traumatize people, to try to make people depressed in this video, but these are very real issues that we need to shine a light on and talk about out here in the open so that Disney knows that we're aware of what's going on in the UAE, and if they have a hand in that, then that doesn't reflect very well on them. No, does it? So if you're looking for a funny Bring Back the People Mover video or a history video, this is not going to be that. I'll have another one later this week. It's a bit of a more traditional offhand Disney video, but with all of that being said, let's talk about this. So first off, let's take a look at this concept art, right? This is the concept art for the new Abu Dhabi Disneyland Resort, and that looks pretty cool, pretty luxurious, pretty high tech, and I did say all of those things in my previous video talking about this. But what I only briefly mentioned is the cost, not the monetary cost, but the human cost of building these types of resorts, specifically in places like Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Because like I said, look at this. This looks crazy. Because cities like Dubai and Abu Dhabi are very quickly growing with the new booming tourism industry in the United Arab Emirates, they're gonna have to build buildings at a lot quicker of a cadence than would be normal, and so they're gonna need a lot of workers. See, a lot of construction work in the UAE is done by migrant workers, people from other countries who sign up to go to another country and help construct buildings, I guess in this case theme parks there. And a majority of these migrant workers in Dubai or Abu Dhabi are Southeast Asian migrants from places like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, or even some African countries like Kenya. And they're told when signing up for these new construction jobs that their lives would be more stable, and they could be earning up to 10 times the amount of money per month than they would be making back home. And I don't know about you, but 10 times the amount of money I'm making a month sounds pretty awesome. And so a lot of these workers, who are usually down on their luck or destitute or in need of money to feed their friends, family, children, sign on with the companies responsible for building these new skyscrapers or theme parks, but oftentimes have to pay for their transportation and things like passports out of their own wallets, out of their own pockets. And remember, these are the people who are in positions where they need money bad enough that they're willing to go to a completely different country for an indeterminate amount of time in order to make the lives of their families better. But things like plane tickets to Dubai and passports, those cost money, and so these workers will either use what little they have left to their name or take out loans with friends, family members, or even banks in some cases to afford to travel to places like Abu Dhabi in order to just get started working in the first place so they can start earning that money. Now, a lot of this can be traced back to the kafala system, or the sponsorship system, where an individual will sign a contract with their host company, or sometimes in some cases a host person in the original country, so in this case the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, giving the company or the person complete control over the worker's immigration status and employment, which sounds like you're signing away a lot, and you kind of are. Now, oftentimes, upon arriving in the home country, the new worker will have their passport confiscated by their company, making it even harder for them to leave once they're there. I say even harder because remember, most of them barely had the money to even get to the UAE in the first place. And so as part of the kafala system, they rely on their employer to supply them with things like housing. And with the amount of migrant workers coming in to work in the UAE and the amount of people who can't leave due to having their passports confiscated or not being able to afford to leave the country and return to their families, that leads to very cramped and inhumane living conditions. Not to mention the 12-hour-a-day shifts for 7 days a week. No days off, 12 hours a day. And just in case you forgot, this is Abu Dhabi, you know, in the desert. It's very, very hot there during the day. It can reach excess of 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's with no breaks, by the way. So you can see why these conditions could be equated to slave labor. And it sounds terrible, horrible, and that's because it is. These people don't have any way to escape the situation that they're in, usually going months without pay, therefore keeping them in this grueling cycle of sleeping, working, and then repeating for months at a time while the carrot is dangled in front of their metaphorical faces because they haven't gotten paid for the work that they're doing yet. Months without payment, which pushes them further into the cycle of debt, and then they need to stay there for longer to repay that debt to earn more money, and the situation often ends up spiraling out of control. Something that becomes even more distressing when you learn that the Indian consulate reported that every week in Dubai, 2 migrant workers tragically take their own lives, and 8 more lose their lives every week as a result of the poor living conditions or the heat. So that's 10 lives every single week, and you can start to see why this becomes an issue when we talk about this new Disney park being built. We're going to tie this back to Disney now, because as I mentioned in my original announcement video, Disney is not footing the bill. Miral is a third-party contractor that is licensing the use of Disney's characters and Imagineers to help build this new theme park, similar to how the OLC manages Tokyo Disneyland out in Japan. Disney is not constructing this theme park, which means that it could fall victim to the awful working practices that take place within Abu Dhabi and Dubai. I've done a little bit of digging though, and I don't want to say that this is case closed. Disney is not using slave labor to build their new theme park in Abu Dhabi. But Miral, when they were building Warner Brothers World, another resort on Yas Island, contracted the construction company Besix, based out of Brussels, Belgium, to construct the new theme park. And Besix, from what I'm reading on their own website, seems to be on the more ethical side of things. For example, in 2017, the head of the International Labor Organization, an agency within the United Nations specializing in labor, highlighted Besix specifically when comparing and contrasting different construction companies in the Middle East and how they protected and treated their workers, taking Besix as an example of one of the companies with good practices in the area, which is interesting because Besix also worked on the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest building, alongside another contractor, Arab Tech, which does mistreat their workers. So right there, bad thing for those two to be even associated. And then at what point does Besix go hands off with construction and maybe, you know, some bad things, some horrible practices end up leaking through? And then at what point do facts bleed together with PR? I don't know. None of this stuff can be guaranteed, which in of itself is a bad thing. I don't have my feet on the ground in Abu Dhabi to judge them based on all of these claims that are being made promoting Besix. So at the end of the day, not knowing is also pretty bad. It's still kind of shady, if you ask me. Yes, people have died within Disney resorts before, but this is going to be probably the first time where the construction of a Disney park will be measured not only in dollars, but also in lives. 10 a week. How long is it going to take from groundbreaking to grand opening to construct this theme park? It's just something to think about, all right? And that's not even mentioning laws against LGBTQ plus people in the UAE. Me, myself, being a friend and relative to people in the queer community who are Disney fans, Disney World and Disneyland. Citizens of the UAE could be punished with up to 14 years in prison or even death in some cases, which is absolutely mind-boggling. And I know a lot of LGBTQ plus people are drawn to Disney because of their stories and their characters, and the reality that even just maybe holding hands in Abu Dhabi Disneyland with your significant other could land you either back on a plane back to your home country, or even worse, it's a scary thought to think. And that's not even touching very deeply on things like women's rights, which still have a very long way to go in the country, as is everywhere. It's a whole big mess, and you can't really necessarily blame these people for, one, not wanting to ever go to Abu Dhabi Disneyland ever, because why would you? And two, being upset that Disney is building this in the first first place when they usually stand for inclusivity. For crying out loud, inclusivity is one of the 5 keys, one of the 5 very tenets of being a cast member, of working and being with Disney. It seems like maybe there won't be the 5 keys at Abu Dhabi Disneyland, but who knows? We're not going to play the what about game here. We probably will in the comments, but not here, because we all know that we still have a very long way to go with these social issues all over the dang world, okay? But we're talking specifically about Disneyland Abu Dhabi here. I could go on for hours and hours about Florida, okay? Florida lawmakers, what is going on over there? Just for the sake of this video, we have to stay on topic. Not feeling safe going to one of the happiest places on earth, we run into a couple of problems here. Disney, I'm talking to you now. Disney, Bob Iger, I know you watch these videos. It is very, very important. Your name is on this project. People go to the Disney parks around the world to escape from the problems of outside life. You are responsible. You bear responsibility for how this park is constructed and how it's run. You need to make sure that these people aren't being exploited. You need to show us that you are taking steps to make sure that these people aren't exploited. The LGBTQ plus people aren't in danger if they want to visit the Disney park in the United Arab Emirates. I know that's a very long shot, that's kind of out of your control a little bit, but what is in your control is putting your name on this project. You signed off on this, Bob. You wanted this to happen, right? You have to walk the walk. If you claim to be about progress, if you claim to be about inclusivity, you gotta prove it. And this is not proving it. I still think the Abu Dhabi Disney Resort looks neat. I think it's a neat idea in theory. In practice, it's not really working for me though. I like to theorize about concept art and look at the future of the Disney parks, see what attractions they could build and potentially move to the American parks. That's always a lot of fun. But like I mentioned in my Communicore Hall is getting better, I think, video, I talked about how we should praise Disney when they do things right, and I think the new Communicore Hall was done pretty well. And we also have to criticize them, not complain, not whine, but criticize them. Tell them what they're doing wrong when they do something bad. And I don't think this video came off as whiny or complainy. I'm just telling them why I think that building this Disney park in Abu Dhabi might not be the best way if they're just going to let things happen the way that they've been happening for the past however many years with the workers' rights and the discriminatory laws that are in place. I see one of 3 things happening from here on out. Either 1, Disney completely cancels the project. It's off the table. Disney is no longer building this resort. I don't know if that's necessarily the most likely. What I think is more likely is that these plans are scaled back. They're reined in a little bit, and maybe there's a Disney experience out there, something like Disney Quest instead. Obviously not exactly like Disney Quest, but you know what I'm saying, a smaller, more confined version of a Disney park out there. That's another, I would say probably more realistic probability. Or 3, they decide to go full steam ahead and build this thing, and they're just gonna wait for the press to pass, they're gonna wait for the negative media coverage to blow over, and they're just gonna continue on doing this. And that, I think, would be pretty unfortunate. Although we could have the mysterious and ever-elusive 4th possibility, where Disney leverages their money and their fame and their name to make sure this park is built humanely and responsibly. And that only kind of solves like half the problem, so I guess, like I said in many videos in the past, and how I will continue to say in many videos in the future, we will have to see how this all plays out. I don't expect to hear any more news about this Abu Dhabi park or resort in the near future, and I would like to cover it going forward, but if this topic is inflammatory, if this just makes everybody mad, and nobody has a good time talking about this park, then I probably will not cover it going into the future, but you never know. It wouldn't be the first theme park Disney has canceled. Anybody else remember Disney's America? That never ended up happening. I don't know, those are just some of my thoughts on this new Abu Dhabi Disney theme park. Like I said in my first video, I stand by that the park looks like it could be a lot of fun, but there are some foundational issues, some really deep issues that need to be addressed before we can move forward with this park, that need to be put to sleep before this park can really be considered to be in the true spirit of Disney. True spirit of Disney. Remember the animators strike? Good old Walt. But now, very cautiously, I'm going to turn the question over to you, my friend, down there in the comments. What do you think about this new Abu Dhabi Disney theme park? Do you think it looks fun? Do you not really care for it? And what do you think about the issues that I talked about in this video? Does that affect your enjoyment of the park at all, or do you not really care? Because for me, it'll definitely affect my enjoyment of the park if I ever do end up visiting. Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you for sitting with me through this video. I know it was different, but it was just something I felt like I needed to talk about on this channel to sort of set everything straight, get the air all cleared up, and now that it is like that, we can go back to talking about Jean Lafitte, the Haunted Mansion, and how the Disneyland People Mover needs to return. That's why you're all here. That's why you all come to Offhand Disney. Let's talk about a People Mover. I can mention it somewhere. Probably the end card, maybe in the next video. I'll figure something out. Hey there, everybody. I know this was definitely a different kind of video. I hope you enjoyed it for what it is, though. It's certainly not a history video or a fun facts video. It's actually a sad facts video. But if you found this video useful or informational, please hit the like button. And if you're new around here and you want to be notified when I upload a video in the future, you can go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I just know already that the comments are going to be a bloodbath. I don't want to have to turn them off. We'll see how things go. I like to think we can all keep it pretty civil down below, but you never know on the internet these days. I also didn't want this video to come off as too preachy. I mean, I think I made it clear within the course of the video how I feel about things and how I stand socially. So hopefully that resonates with a lot of you, and you can either agree with me or politely disagree with me, or, you know, we'll talk about it in the comments. We'll see how it goes. If you can't tell, I'm really nervous about uploading this video. I tried to make it as tasteful and respectful as possible. Everyone just wants to be comfortable and have fun and not hurt anybody, and I think that we should be allowed to do that no matter what Disney park in the world we're in. Maybe that's just me though. If you want to follow me for free on other social media sites, you can on Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, and TikTok at Offhand Disney. And if you want to donate even just $1 a month to my Patreon, which will also be linked down in the description below, it really goes a long way. You get early access to videos and exclusive access to other videos. If that sounds interesting to you, like I said, just down there in the description. But everybody, with all of that being said, thank you all so much for watching. If you made it to the end, to the very end of the end card here, we'll have like a secret code word. We can say like Epcot Ball. Say Epcot Ball down in the comments so I know that you watched the entire thing. I know it's called Spaceship Earth. I call it Spaceship Earth, but a lot of people call it the Epcot Ball. And if you say Epcot Ball, I'll know that you watched the whole thing. Everybody, thank you all again. Seriously, with this one, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. It's going to be a lot more lighthearted, a lot more fun than this one. We're going to get back to the regular, scheduled Offhand Disney programming. Depending on how this video does and how it's received and how polite people are with each other down in the comments, we'll talk about Abu Dhabi Disneyland in the future when more news comes out. Maybe we won't. Everybody, thank you all so much for watching. Again, I think that's the second time I've said that. See you in next week's video. Goodbye.